always live and always wild. And today we're always about the babies as well. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Africam show. We're starting off at a really cool camp today. We've got a black eagle nest. Now, this is in Salati, and there is a little chick there. And I'm so excited about this because we haven't seen a black eagle chick in quite some time. If you were familiar with our cameras from a while ago, remember that we had one in the Walter Sisulu Gardens here in Gauteng, and we were watching that pair and that nest for quite a while. But I think the position of this camera is just perfect, and you'll see why in a moment. If I sound a bit nasally, I'm very sorry. I'm a little sick, but it's nothing that the African bush can't cure. Although I do have some tea. And I see a lot of you have many different drinks and snacks to enjoy the show with. And you're letting me know because we're live and interactive. So keep sending through those questions and comments. And if you're new, we'd love to say hello. So send those through too. First up, we have Patricia Wolf that says, Hi all. Hi, Patricia. Thank you for joining us. Jack DeBoer says, Good morning from Cheesecake, Virginia. Are you mixing what you're eating and where you're from? I think you meant Chesapeake. At least that's what I usually remember from you. Before we move on to the other comments, just a note that you can hear the wind, and that's because black eagles like to nest at the very tops of cliffs, and that's where this camera is positioned right now. You can see the beautiful vista. You can see so much of the ground below and the horizon, but it also means it catches quite a lot of wind. You can actually see the little branches moving as well. Kaoru, you say, Hi Trishala, I've got milk and a piece of bread with butter. Very classic. Well done, Kaoru. Tammy says, Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning to you too, Tammy. DNC says, Good morning from Seattle. You're ready with your coffee. I have a cup of, what is this? Chamomile, vanilla, and honey tea. And it's going down very well. And of course, we are talking about this because we're waiting with bated breath for that chick to reveal itself. MG Leopard Spots, you say hello there from the Bay Area in California. Ice water and ice espresso. I'm sure the heat is really coming through now. Here in Southern Africa, it's pretty chilly. But in the low veld, like in the area where this nest is, it's going to be still warm during the day, but the mornings and the evenings will get chilly very quickly. Bridget McKinney says hi, and you have some lemon water. Very nice. Josh Drown says, Morning, everyone. Jan Powers says, Hello, everyone. Hi, Jan. Cindy says, Good morning. Casper's Third Ghost says hi. Everyone is with the cold water today, or a cold drink. And Mindy, hey, Mindy, you say, It never ceases to amaze you how birds can construct such intricate nests with essentially their beaks. Mindy, I've got a story for you and for everybody. Firstly, I hope that you're enjoying your retirement. And so recently, I was in Spain and I was working on a project that was trying to revive the vulture population in that area, particularly black vultures and Egyptian vultures. But anyway, part of what they needed to do was construct artificial nests. And it was a process. It took about 5 hours, 5 hours, and about 7 people to construct this artificial nest. There was so much effort. And I mean, that's like 14 hands able to work and help out, and it took that amount of time. So it's crazy to think that these birds construct these nests just with their beaks. And some of these branches are huge, right? They're really large. But maybe that's one of the reasons that many of the larger birds, vultures and raptors, they tend to reuse nests because it does take a lot of effort to build them. I wonder how long it would have taken the pair to build this particular nest. And rose eagles are some of the largest. I think that they're one of the largest that we get here in Southern Africa. The females are slightly larger than the males, and they're in kind of the 3.5 to 4.5 kg range. So it's pretty big. But in order to fly with those twigs, oh my goodness. I mean, I wouldn't even call them twigs, they're branches. And the nest is constructed by both of the adults in the mating pair. And of course, that makes sense because if you look at the size of the nest and the effort that goes into it, one of the partners is just not going to do. I'm still waiting patiently because just as we were doing our checks before the show started, we did see the little guy. Precious little rose eagle chick. So it's definitely there. In the meantime, I'll tell you that I think I had one of my crowning bird moments when I was helping out with this vulture project. I got to release an Egyptian vulture, everybody. It was very special. I was quite nervous though. I was scared that I would release her and then she'd just fall to the ground like a chicken. Luckily, she took flight. Zygote, that is a great point. Zygote, you say nothing beats the weaver's nest. They're even strong for normal people to tear apart. Absolutely, and not just strong. Weaver nests so intricate. And these are also intricate nests, just in a different way. They take a lot of effort, a lot of physical effort. Whereas the weaver's nest is sort of more dexterous effort. And they have, if you've ever sewn or maybe you crochet or anything like that, you knit and you know that there's different types of knots. There's a hitch, there's a half hitch, there's all these different types of knots. And weavers weave with similar knots. So it's quite interesting if you get to see a diagram. I once had a bird, well, no, it wasn't mine. I borrowed a bird book once that was about nests and nest construction. And it had a diagram that showed each one of the different types of um, knots and loops and things like that they could make. And it honestly reminded me of following a pattern when I'm crocheting. And because of those fine movements and using much finer material, they're not using these heavy branches and these twigs. They're using grasses and other very light materials. They can really weave. And that makes it difficult to pull apart. It also makes them quite susceptible to movements of the wind. And if you have a look at this bulky nest, oh, I can't even imagine how much it must weigh. It's really not budging on this cliff face. The leaves that are still left on the scraggly branches, they're moving, but other than that, it is so, so solid. Come on, little chickie. You can do it. Show yourself. We just might have to wait a little longer, but luckily, Kirst is in the background and she's very, very quick when it comes to switching the feeds. So how about we go check up on our other babies for now, and we'll come back as soon as we get a glimpse of the little chick. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite part of being a guide with a science background. It's the part where I just get to go, oh my gosh, oh, because I have nothing useful to say because they're just so stinking cute. How is that little purr? And they're getting so playful now. Right up on Mum's back. Yes, go on. She clearly needs more cubs on her back. And you can see the other cheetah mum on the other side of the fence with her little cub. Oh, they're definitely imitating each other. Even the mums are imitating each other. Now, this is such a wonderful age. There must be about 2 months, maybe a little bit more now, hey, Kirst? Earlier, we saw them um, eating from Mum's bowl also, which means that they're starting to eat meat, which is something we typically see with cheetah cubs around like the 3 month mark, although they'll still be drinking Mum's milk. They'll only be weaned around 6 months. And this transitionary period is really important. They've got to get those guts used to digesting meat. Oh my goodness. And just like that, this was unplanned, everyone. We're at Tambe, and there's a lion. It's going from cat to cat. I think this is my favorite part of this show. Is, I mean, if you think about the time of day, it's almost 4:15 in the afternoon. Typically, this is not when you're going to see a whole lot of predator movement, and this is when we normally have the show, right? So most of the time, we're looking at cameras that are well positioned for things. We're looking at elephants and terrapins, baboons, giraffes, but we hardly get to see lions just like that. She's having a drink very awkwardly. And now what? Time to just chill. Now you can see that she's got a collar on her. And in this area, we did have the lineage that we were quite used to, the Astarte and the F70. But I know that there's been a couple changes, and I'm sure that Kirst will fill me in. But of course, if you know who this could be, let me know also. Because Kirst also told me that there was a lioness in this area that looked like she had suckle marks. Now, that's marks that you can see on the underside of the belly. That's a result of, for one, uh, once a lioness is pregnant, then her nipples are a lot more swollen. And then on top of that, if she has cubs, suckle marks develop as that dampness of the cubs constantly being attached in that area becomes visible. So at the moment, I don't, and Kes says the same, is that we don't really know names. Ooh, might have seen some marks there. Definitely saw the nipples very prominent. And also an obvious scar, or a recent injury, actually. It's not even a scar. It's still healing. I know, Mindy, this is a treat, right? Oh, look at the muscles on that lioness. And just chilling. Well, this time of year is the perfect time to have these kinds of sightings during the Africam show because the sun is starting to set earlier, it's cooling down earlier, which means that predators are going to start moving earlier. Oh, it certainly is a treat. So, Kirst, you said that there was a lioness here the other day and the one that looked like she had suckle marks. Um, did she also have that injury on the kind of the left shoulder area? If she did, I'm trying to gauge how old that injury could be. So if it was the same one, then that would give me some kind of indication. It doesn't look very fresh. It looks like it's a ooh, somebody else is coming along. There we go. There we go. Nice. I love it when the shadows speak to us. Did you see the shadow? It was definitely the shadow of a lioness. Okay, so we've got the two collared females here. So one of them from the other day definitely looked like she had suckle marks. Wow. I'm actually wondering, so this female also has that's that scar or that shape on her right shoulder. So I'm thinking I'm wondering if they may have implanted a contraceptive. It does look a little uh like a contraceptive that has been implanted underneath, especially since they look exactly the same. I can't imagine why else they would have any kind of clearly man-made wound on them, exactly the same as well. Now, this is something that many reserves do, particularly if they're closed reserves, is that they need to be able to manage the population. And if lions can't easily be moved, they need to manage in a different way. And that often means putting females on contraceptives. Now, I know when we had Astarte and F70, I think F70 was on contraceptives as well, but I'm not sure if or it failed or something. Oh, maybe I'm misremembering. But using contraceptives on wild animals is something that happens in reserves, closed reserves, often. And that's to just make sure that the population doesn't get out of control. Because unfortunately, moving animals from one reserve to another is A, expensive, takes a lot of research to make sure that you're not disrupting the dynamics in that area by doing that, and that there is a gap territory-wise for those animals to slot in easily. So it takes a lot of resources. So managing through contraceptives can be easier. But even so, that's not easy. I say easier, but I don't actually mean easy, because that still means darting the animal. Darting the animal is risky. It still means you need to have vets on standby and a whole team to help with that process. But I'm just speculating here. I think it could be contraceptive. What I'm also looking at is the muscle underneath that scar. And it looks a little bit swollen, which might also indicate that something has been put underneath it. Notice as we look around how there's almost nothing else around. It is quiet. Earlier when they just came in, having a drink, just chilling, they didn't particularly look like they were stalking, but this is the time of day now when they're going to start thinking about that. And they're positioned in a way that I've seen so many times, facing the same direction and just watching and staying pretty still. So for me, is an indication that they're going to begin their hunt shortly. When I say shortly, I mean in the next 4 hours or so, maybe even 6 hours. It would be quite difficult for an animal a prey species to come along and notice these lionesses if they're coming in from the tree line and these two stay very still and flat. It's going to be difficult to spot the potential danger for them. Gosh, I really want to know what's going on with those marks. Can we look at there we go. It was just a bit of, what's the word? Illusion. I thought that she had a short tail as well. But no. But once the show ends, this is the camera to watch because I strongly suspect that these two are going to start moving around probably about 8 p.m., 8:30, so in about 4 hours' time. They're going to start moving. It's going to be obviously in infrared because it's more difficult to see at that time with no light. And because we're at a waterhole and it's winter, so it's a dry season, animals are going to come down to have a drink. So you might see some action on this camera a little later. These things are always difficult to predict, but you can place yourself in the best position to witness them hunting. I mean, it could happen in the next 10 minutes while we still are together. But if not, it's definitely the camera to go and watch after the show has ended. Cast, has our black eagle chick, or the rose eagle chick made an appearance yet? We did want to do a baby update before we get into everything else and just cruise the cams, but these lionesses decided to show up. We also wanted to have a look at the penguins, the two penguin chicks that we saw, when was it? A couple shows back at Stony Point in the Western Cape. But they're also hiding. I mean, I don't blame them. It's really cold. Well, we'll keep an eye on these two. Oh, Kirsten's only got two eyes, and she's going to keep one eye on the black eagle chick and the other eye here at Tambe. And then we're going to head back over to the cheetah cubs. Hello, cubby. Negro, you're asking, is this the dry season in Africa? Some trees look dried up. So the dry season is different across different countries and different places in the country. So in those areas, or in the majority of the areas that the cameras are in, it is the dry season. Winter is the dry season. But for example, where the penguins are, at Stony Point in the Western Cape, also in South Africa, winter is the wet season. So it just depends on where you go. And definitely across the continent, that's going to be different too. So just in the country, we have variation of when the dry season is. But yes, you can see that the trees are looking very dry. A good indication is also looking at the grasses. And you can see here in where these cubs are, as well as where we were watching the lionesses, the grass is really starting to get very yellow if it's there at all. So winter is the dry season. In most of the spots we have cameras, and Summer is the wet season. Oh, took a tumble. Very cute. I'm so fascinated by the way that they are right next to the other cheetah female and her cub. And I remember when we first saw the cubs, or I first saw the cubs at least, they were very alert and constantly watching over the fence at what was happening on the other side. But now they're so super chilled. Look at that face. Jean Gale, you say you're asking, so the two cheetah mums are hanging out near each other. Is that common or unusual? That is unusual, but because this is at a sanctuary at the Hood Endangered Species Sanctuary or Species Center, HESC, because it's in this area, they are close to each other. But in the wild, that would not happen. Now, cheetah mums or cheetah females don't hold territories. They're nomadic. They move around. When they have cubs, they move around with those cubs once they can. Of course, when they're very tiny, they just kind of hunker down. Oh, someone's about to pounce. Someone's about to pounce. Too late. That was some proper stalking there, little one. Are we going to jump? So, Jean Gale, this was also one of the big questions I had, and I thought surely they must put like a board or something so they can't see each other at least, because perhaps that would be stressful for the animals to constantly see essentially competition. But HESC have been so involved and so successful in their cheetah rehabilitation, their conservation, their reintroductions. They've been so successful that I think they know what they're doing. But it is unusual, definitely not something that would happen in the wild. I mean, when we first got to this camera at the beginning of the show, there were both cheetah adult mums were just lying there, not a care in the world. And at some point, animals figure out that something is not a danger to them, and that's really all they need to know. But if there is an especially stressful situation for one of the mums, then perhaps they might show some aggression or interest through the gate or through the fence. Jack DeBoer, you say they sure are cute. I know. They're crazy cute. And Rolling Trouble. Hey, Rolling Trouble, how are you doing? You say one is a big tree climber, definitely. And the one is pioneering tree climbing, and the other cubs keep looking up, trying to follow suit. There we go. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, you're getting pretty good. Look at that little one. You've made it pretty far. Oh, this is always the worst part. I find it easy to climb up trees and a panic to come back down. Is that not the cutest? I thought Mom was going to come through and give this one a bit of a scolding. There we go, you made it. Mum walked with a lot of determination there. I wonder what got her interest. Sorry if you can hear the next door dogs. Alfredo Leone, that is a good question. You're saying, or you're asking, so can we say that the wet season is very hot and in the dry season it is cold? It depends, again, where in South Africa you are, but the dry season, so where this camera is in the Lowveld, the dry season is the winter season. So it would be colder than the rest of the year, but it's not exceptionally cold. So during the day, temperatures in winter will still go up to late 20s, 30 degrees Celsius. But uh, but there's not a huge temperature difference. So because of this, for us as scientists or guides, what's most important in understanding the biology and the behavior of these animals is the wet and the dry season, because that affects their behavior more than the temperature, because the temperature doesn't really change a whole lot, not enough to affect their behavior terribly. Then in this area again, the wet season is summer. So summers are super humid, high temperatures, lots of storms. It's glorious. But then if we go to the Western Cape, summer is the super dry season, and winter is the very cold and wet season. So in the Western Cape, there's more of a Mediterranean climate, and then as you move up the coast, on the eastern side of the country, it's more of a tropical climate. So not a huge change in the temperatures. Where in the Western Cape, you get a bigger gap in the temperatures between the winter and the summer. Alfredo, you also wanted to know what that characteristic bird sound they make is called. I think it's got the perfect name because you hit the nail on the head. It is a bird type sound and it's called a type of chirp. They do this kind of purring, rolling chirp, and then they also do a chirp that sounds less rolly. And that's a way for them to communicate, to stay in contact, for mum to call her cubs. It's very, very cute. And remember that cheetahs can also purr, which is something that lions and leopards can't do. So when you listen to this rolling chirp, it sounds very much like a purr, right? Like your house cat might do, but it's significantly louder and slightly higher pitched. So these cubs are actually only a month and a half old. I thought they were more like 2 months, but it's just a month and a half, which also explains why they're so cute still. And it's interesting to see that they're already interested in mum's food at this age, whereas in the wild they might be interested a little bit later. Well, I say that they might start eating consistently a little bit later, but they might still be interested in mum's food. So perhaps not that unusual. Ooh, been all about the cats. How about we have a bit of an elephant break and head over to Oldonyo in Kenya? Oh, hey, big, beautiful elephant bull. Nice to see you. I have really been missing elephants. I think when I'm away from the bush for a long period, they are the number one animal I miss. Just staring at this waterhole. Probably deep in thought. At least that's what I like to think. But what's more likely happening is that he's listening to some of the vibrations that are being sent through the ground, coming from other elephants. In general, when you see elephants standing really still, you can bet that they are either listening to a long distance conversation or they might be actually actively involved in one. He might actually even just be talking to the elephant in front of him on the other side of the dam or the pan, because they communicate in those super long wave sounds or low frequency sounds. It can travel for long distances, but also it's outside of our hearing range. So they can be really loud. It's just that our ears can't detect those particular frequencies that they can communicate at. Some, of course, we can detect. We can hear them trumpeting, we can hear them squealing, rumbling, but we can't hear those low frequency sounds that they make and that they converse with all the time, or converse in. Cindy, they certainly are majestic. I absolutely love elephants. And there's something very special about seeing two magnificent bulls like this. Oh, the one on the left is definitely bigger than the one on the right. You can see the one on the right is a little skinny. If you also have a look at his head is smaller than the one on the left, and so are his tusks. So if I'd say who is the dominant male in this interaction, I would say it's the one on the left. Mindy, you say animals are so much more in tune with their surroundings than we are. You know, I was thinking about this recently, and you know, when I was telling you all that I had come back from the Amazon trip, and I was spending time with one of the indigenous tribes there, and I was listening to the way that they use nature and the way that they communicate with nature. And it reminded me a lot of guiding, obviously in a different way, but we also have to pay attention to the sounds the birds are making, the smells, all those things. So we're using nature to communicate, or communicate, we're listening to nature communicate with us, essentially. But then it got me thinking, and in a way, we are very connected to our surroundings, and we are very in tune with our surrounding, and it is, I think it is an innate skill of anything that lives on this planet. The difference is our surroundings, because we can only learn from the inputs that we're given. And so if we're always given urban areas, then we only get to know urban areas. And so, like, you know the sound of your own car. You know, if someone's driving a car, you know the sound of that car. You know what the sound of your car turning on is like, what your garage door sounds like, what your neighbor's gate sounds like, what a car accident may sound like 2 roads away. You are very, very in touch with your surroundings, but in a different situation, in a different environment. And I think it's an innate skill of life of any animal that exists anywhere for you to be in touch with your surroundings. The only difference is that our surroundings have moved from being totally natural to urbanized. But that skill is still there. And I find it also very fascinating that before I actually became a guide, so while I was still training, and very early on, you can sense when a sound is not right. And that's why I think that there's something in us, an innate skill about knowing our surroundings. We just have to give ourselves the right inputs. Oh, there's a little zebra at the back there too. Negro, you'd like to know if the bull elephants get along okay, if there's a hierarchy. There definitely is a hierarchy. It's not as linear and straightforward as the hierarchies that we see in other animals. It chops and changes, and it's not enforced in the same way. It's quite fluid, but it's generally related to age, because age is related to experience, and also because elephant bulls continue to grow throughout their life. So the older an elephant bull is, the likelihood that they are larger than everyone else. So size, age, and experience are the big things when it comes to a hierarchy with elephant bulls. But it is in no way as strict as a hierarchy um, within a hyena clan or wild dogs, or even having a matriarch like you do with elephant cows within a breeding herd. They tend to form groups of friends, and you might find that particularly higher ranking individuals. I don't want to use the word ranking because it's not. Oh, that's not going to do, is it? But they form relationships, and those relationships can benefit how they are seen to the rest of the population of elephant bulls in the area. Because they can communicate over long distances, it also means that they can know what's happening over great distances. So if they meet an elephant that they have heard about, because that is a thing, there is research to show that elephants can respond to and know different names of elephants. If they meet another elephant and they may have heard of it, then they might know something about whether it's dominant or not. So their relationships are complex, and in a way it kind of reminds me of old man human relationships. Where's grumpy old man today? I'm sure you would have something to say about that. Negro, a really excellent question, and it's one of those things that is it's a little more difficult to explain because it isn't so strict. It's just forming relationships, showing dominance, but not having to particularly not having to fight for your place in that hierarchy. It just exists because where there's a group of elephants or where there's a group of people, some are more dominant and some are not. It's kind of the same. Anyway, I've been talking on, and it seems that the black eagle chick might be getting fed. Hopefully we didn't miss it. Oh, there we go. So if you see a slightly light-colored, perhaps almost like a cotton wool ball there behind the legs of, there we go. That is a black eagle chick, everybody. Isn't that cute? It also shows you that this nest is quite deep. So it gives the chick plenty of protection from the wind. And mum or dad here, as they take shifts, is carefully pulling little bits out. Very nice. A little partial digestion going on here. Before old Chickie gets some. Oh, I was just wondering what they mostly catch in this area, because black eagles are hyrax specialists. And in areas where you see them often, or like quite commonly, like in the Western Cape, there's a lot of rock hyraxes or dassies around. So I was wondering in this area what they go for, but Kirst has just told me it's still a hyrax that they're having a go at. Oh, this is so sweet. What a wonderful way to end our time together. So now you have loads of options to go over to the Africam website and go and watch. I would say we go watch this this camera first, then check on the penguins, which you didn't get to because they didn't come out, the penguin babies, and then give yourself a little bit of time and then head over to Tembe and see what those lionesses are up to. But thanks everybody for your wonderful questions. I hope that you had an excellent time in the African bush, and I'll see you all on Thursday. So bye for now.